Genre theory and collective identity. Genre is a word that comes from the French meaning kind or class. It's widely used in literary theory, media theory, or linguistics, and it means a distinctive type of text. Classifying films. It's a difficult business when we come to classify the media. So Robert Stamm wrote this: while some genres are based on story content, the war film, others are borrowed from literature, comedy, melodrama, and others from other media, the musical. Some are performer-based, the Astaire Rogers films, or budget-based blockbusters, while others are based on artistic status, the art film, or racial identity, black cinema, or location, or sexual orientation, queer cinema. So Stamm recognises the process of classifying films according to genre is actually quite complicated. We'll see this. There are no rigid rules for inclusion or exclusion. Genres are not discrete or separate systems consisting of a fixed number of listable items. It is difficult to make clear-cut distinctions between one genre and another. Genres overlap, or there are mixed genres such as comedy thrillers. Specific genres tend to be easy to recognize intuitively but difficult to define. Particular features which are characteristic of a genre are not normally unique to it. It is their relative prominence, combination and functions which are distinctive. It is easy to underplay the differences within a genre. So, you know, if you look at rom-coms, romantic comedies, for example, it's actually quite easy to underplay the differences, perhaps between a film like One Day and Bridget Jones. And there are a lot of differences even between those films that are actually quite similar in many ways. What genres are contained in The Kids Are All Right? It's well worth discussing this. Is this a gay film about a gay couple, lesbian couple? Is it a lesbian film? Or is it a film about teenagers finding themselves, or rites of passage film? Possible answers: domestic drama, teenage rites of passage, dramedy, that's a mixture of comedy and drama, a gay identity film, a male midlife crisis, or a sex comedy. Genre subversion. The best films seem to subvert or do something different, or change the rules for a genre. They add new elements, they mix different genres, they follow specific predictable plotline, then add a surprise. Perhaps they contain stock characters or stereotypes which become more complex. So they're doing something quite different. Todorov and Sobchak. They're two theorists that really are vital to understanding about genre. Todorov argued, a Russian theorist, argued that any instance of a genre will be necessarily different. So the idea is that it's in the differences that you see the different genres. Whereas Thomas and Vivian Sobchak note that in the past, popular filmmakers intent on telling a story were not always aware of the covert psychological and social subtext of their films, but add that modern filmmakers and their audiences are now more keenly aware of the myth-making accomplished by film genres. This is very important for us when we look at collective identity, so that perhaps in the past people weren't aware that, for example, a James Bond film sends these covert or hidden messages or subtext, an underlying thing about, perhaps, let's say, heterosexuality. So that James Bond, the fact that he's constantly sort of going out with beautiful women, is sending a very powerful signal that heterosexuality is cool, it's the thing to be, and actually you're in some way deviant if you feel differently from Bond. Okay, so now the Bond films are a bit more aware of that than perhaps in the past. For example, with Bond, there was the sexism that was just taken for granted that Bond would treat women as second-class citizens. Now we've got a female M who kind of says that he's a sexist dinosaur. So those sorts of things we're a bit more aware. Genre can reflect a function which, in relation to television, Horace Newcomb and Paul Hirsch referred to as a cultural forum in which industry and audience negotiate shared beliefs and values, helping to maintain the social order and assisting it in adapting to change. Certainly, genres are far from ideologically neutral. Right, this is something we're going to explore a bit later on as well in other areas. The whole idea of hegemony and the idea that, which is dominant ideology, that certain genres are filled with the kind of ideas of a culture without them really being aware of it, and that they really reinforce the ways in which the people in power want society to be. So, for example, if we live in a male-dominated society, constantly many genres reinforce, in a hidden way, the dominance of men. Representations of gay people in media text. I mean, let's brainstorm that, to pause this and just think about the ways in which gay people are represented, and from your own experience, before I report some research to you. You use this here. Gay collective identity and genre. The gay person is a stock character in a variety of genres. James Bond, the deadly lesbian, is a familiar character, particularly most famously in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where the lesbian character there kills Bond's wife. The soap opera, frequently represented perhaps in soap opera as a struggle for identity. You may disagree, so think about that. The comedy, the camp figure of fun. I think this is probably the most dominant one, isn't it? In Little Britain, the only gay in the village, the gay advisor to the Prime Minister, and Carry On films, perhaps famously with Kenneth Williams. Do these representations portray gay people in a negative or positive light? Think about that. What's your experience? Stonewall, that's a research that supports the rights for lesbian, bisexual, gay and transgender people, has done some quite detailed research, and it's well worth going back to their website and looking at this carefully. In 2010, they looked at the representation of gay people on youth television. I'll just read a few of these because I'd like you to pause them and actually look through this list properly. Lesbian and gay and bisexual people were portrayed for 5 hours and 43 minutes, 4.5% of total programming. So, considering that perhaps gay people represent a much bigger proportion of the population than that, that's quite a small proportion. And then the other thing I would like you to draw attention to is that Stonewall felt that only 0.6% of total programs were monitored that portrayed these characters realistically and positively. So of the portrayals, of that small portrayal, only a tiny fraction actually presented gay people positively on mainstream TV. Gay people were depicted as figures of fun, predatory, i.e. hunting down and trying to get people to be with them, or promiscuous or sexually promiscuous. They were sleeping around and such like. Just 7 minutes featured scenes where homophobia was challenged. Stonewall's research into audience reaction to these genres and stereotypes, it monitored a few people and asked gay people their views, and this is quite interesting too. We monitored 168 hours in 2005 on peak time TV on BBC One and BBC Two. During that time, lesbian and gay people and their lives were realistically and positively portrayed in just 6 minutes. And then a few other points that the Stonewall research came up. Gay life is most likely to appear in entertainment programs and is rarely featured in factual programs like documentaries and the news. BBC programmes frequently use gay sexuality for making jokes or as an insult, and rely heavily on cliched stereotypes. That's looking at the BBC. And they argue for a more diverse range of lesbian and gay identities beyond the sort of stereotypes that you find, the kind of figure of fun. General question to ask. I want you to discuss this as class. Do certain genres mean that certain collective identities are never explored, represented fairly? This is a vital question to consider. Could you, and it's best embodied perhaps in this question, could you ever have a gay James Bond? Would the Bond films actually work if Bond slept with men as opposed to women? If not, why not? Could you have a disabled or disfigured Bond? My point would be that marginal groups generally only appear in films where their otherness, their issue, the thing that makes them other, i.e. their ethnicity, their sexuality, or their ability, their disability, is the centre of the narrative. So, e.g., the gay man finding out he's gay, Brokeback Mountain is a classic case. So that what you get is that these issues such as gay collective identity are explored, but only when that particular otherness is the centre of the narrative. Or is it that our prejudice mean that genre films never embrace marginal identity? So that's the reverse of the top question. Is it actually just societal prejudice that means that genres never actually go that far? Kids are alright. Now back to that. Does this film reinforce stereotypes or counteract them? Is it a typical gay genre film or not? If so, why? If not, why? That's what I want you to close with a discussion with. And preliminary, what have you learnt about genre and collective identity in this lesson?